live from Boston. It's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Again, excited about this format. We joined you guys last week to join a real life career coach with a client. We're back for session number 2. We're going to be doing 2 more of these sessions, more than likely, to what's it like to work with a career coach. And we've got a great career coach with us, Terry McDougall. Terry, tell us, you got a podcast coming out, right?
Yeah, I've got a podcast called Winning the Game of Work. And I also have a book by the same name. And the subtitle of the book is Career Happiness and Success on Your Own Terms. And that is what my whole coaching business is about. It's helping people not only be successful at work, but also be happy. And there's a lot of mistakes and kind of misperceptions that people make about job search, that, I just got to take any job that comes my way. And, jobs are scarce and I'm never going to find the perfect situation. And in the type of coaching that I do, we really start with, like we did last week, what are your goals? What would make you happy? What are you good at? And what would you like to do? When we start there, people are a lot more satisfied and successful in their careers.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us, Terry, and giving back your time. And again, Raleigh, thanks for joining us to be the client here. And just to sum up, guys, last week what we did was we did an introductory coaching session with Raleigh, learned more a little bit about him, what kind of job he was looking for, learned about his personality, what kind of different styles he likes to work with. So today what we're going to be doing is Raleigh did some homework. He completed a career assessment for Terry. Terry's going to go over that with him. And then we also talked about him growing his network, reaching out to a few folks each day, each week to kind of gather that network piece. And then at the end of the show, I'll kind of summarize what we did and then talk about what the next show brings us. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Terry, to kind of host here, and appreciate it.
Okay. Well, first of all, Raleigh, I want to say congrats on finishing your homework. I'll tell you, like the career assessment workbook is like 80 pages, and a lot of times people need like multiple weeks. So you did this in 1 week, so I have to give you a credit for that. What was your experience like completing the workbook?
It's not so much difficult. I think I know myself fairly well. Like I said, you kind of learn about yourself from others and what they say about you. So I think the hardest part was just kind of coming up with like accomplishments or whatever, just because some of them can be kind of intangible in my mind. I don't know. It's just kind of the gratification you get with working certain jobs, not necessarily, like I said, a tangible asset that you can put on a piece of paper. I don't know.
Did you find it a little bit challenging to actually get it out of your head and onto the paper?
Yeah. Because I don't really think that way. I'm a great writer, but I can't put things in the words very well. So
yeah, one of the sayings that I have as a coach is it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. That so often, we know ourselves from the inside, right?
Yeah.
And when we're in job search, it's all about us being able to see how other people perceive us and make sure that their perception is aligned with what we're trying to make happen. So really start looking at ourselves as a product and understanding what's expected and how do we sell ourselves. So that's the purpose of the career workbook. And as I started looking through the results, one of the first parts is that you went through a whole exercise about your career needs inventory and kind of did some ratings of like, what are some of the top values? And what you came up with, the things that you want to get out of work is economic reward, which makes sense. Community. So, being able to interact and work with other people, recognition, and intellectual status.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to get clear on what these things are, because sometimes we might just assume that a job is going to give us certain things without us really, raising these things to the level of consciousness so that we can really be looking and examining, am I going to get this from this job? Or even asking those questions in the interview.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like one of the things that you said, the question was, how have the values determined previous career decisions? And you said, I usually don't focus on economic reward too much, but I work too hard at any given job to accept anything below average at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And that's a great realization to come to. And you said economics is the main reason why anybody works, which it is
Yeah.
for some people. Some people it's not, but it's important. If that's important to you, it's important to know that. Because that's going to obviously direct the types of jobs that you look for. And you said you want to be a job that you can be proud of, and one that acknowledges your intellectual status and not working in the hourly gigs that you've been doing, which I think it's something that's very true, that whether it's right or not, that often we are associated with what we do for a living, right? And that we can get some props for that, if you will. So okay, and then the next thing that you went through, and I'm not going to go through this in detail, but just to let people watching this podcast understand that the next thing that Raleigh did was went through a personal skills inventory. And there are probably, I don't know, 70, 75 different skills. And a lot of them are soft skills, like patience and persistence and efficiency, and intuition, that kind of thing. But again, it's part of the process of understanding ourselves better, because the more that we can understand ourselves, the better we're going to be able to sell ourselves. Now, the top 6 skills that Raleigh called out of this list of, say, 75 were optimism, adaptability, a calm demeanor, empathy, sincerity, and responsibility. And these are all really great soft skills in particular to have in a job. And many organizations will be looking for these things. Now, next week, when we talk about the resume, we'll talk about whether we should include those things on the resume or not. And I do have a point of view on that, but I won't bore you with it right now. But these are things that you'll want to demonstrate, and most companies are looking for these, particularly for people that they want to promote into leadership, because these are very important skills for that. And it looks like, when you did some introspection around this, you said people see me as someone they can go to for help, to vent frustrations, to introduce ideas to. So, that your empathy is coming through, and that you can be trusted to handle responsibilities without issues. And that's why you do tend to step into those leadership situations.
I don't naturally put myself out there, but it just kind of happens. If nobody else is going to take the lead, I absolutely will. But,
the cream rises to the top, as they say. Okay, so then the next thing that you did was the functional skills inventory. And one of the exercises that is in the workbook is that once you go through, and again, it's probably 100 functional skills, that you sort them into what are they associated with? Are they associated with working with people, working with data, working with ideas, or working with things? Because if you enjoy working with people and you get a job where they're like, okay, move into that little office by yourself and just work there, 10 hours a day by yourself, it's probably not going to be a job that you're going to enjoy. Right. Yeah. And so it's important, again, to know these things about yourself, so that when you're looking, that you're perfecting this lens through which you're looking at the job market to say, okay, is this a fit or not? And for those of you who are curious and actually might even want to hire Raleigh, he is somebody that prefers working with people. That most of, I'm not going to say most, he's pretty well-rounded, but most of his functional skills are associated with working with people. And then his second area, the second most number of skills, is working with ideas. And then he's pretty well, it's about the same between working with things and working with data. And he agrees that working with people and working with ideas is his strongest area, which, there's a lot of great jobs out there that require collaboration, which require productivity and working on concepts and so forth. So it's good to know that that's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of the questions is, what functional skills do you need to develop or strengthen to be competitive? And you said, I need to strengthen my experience working with data. And actually, what I'd like to share with you is that we don't need to be strong in all things.
Yeah.
We're usually best whenever we follow our strengths. And, you can be aware of your areas for development, but it doesn't mean that you have to like work super hard on developing the things that maybe you're just not drawn to or that you don't like to do, right? The trick is don't do the things you don't like to do. Do the things you like to do and you're good at. And that's a great place to start if you want to have a successful and happy career. Okay, I'm just continuing to look here.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I mean, I just got this shortly before the call today, so I didn't have a chance to read through the entire thing. But so you've been a restaurant manager for a while. That's your background, Raleigh. And
yeah.
When I
started with that company and I progressed from like we had food trucks or whatever, and I just kind of progressed with that. So
yeah. And well, why don't you talk a bit about how some of these like the soft skills and the hard skills helped you to advance in your career with what you did working in hospitality.
So let's see. I don't know. Like the past 3 jobs I've had working for restaurants, not necessarily a sit down, eat restaurant or whatever, but I've always done well. Like I said, I work well with people, but they kind of notice that because every time I get close to like leaving or being discontent or something, they're like, hey, would you like to take a management role? And I get to that point, I'm like, well, yeah, I do like the responsibility and I like working with people and everything, but maybe the pay doesn't necessarily align with the responsibilities based on what I've seen. So I think that's the biggest problem I have with it, because you'll see people who run restaurants, they'll work 60, 70 hours a week and they'll get, I don't know, $50,000 or something like that. Yeah, 32,000. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's absolutely not worth it.
Right.
So I've turned that job, specifically general manager, down like 3 times because I refused to do that. But I know that my strengths are within that. So leading, kind of teaching people, if you will, training them, helping them in difficult situations, because I can talk to anybody and kind of diffuse any kind of frustrations they might have.
And that's a really valuable transferable skill, obviously, because people get upset everywhere. Not just in restaurants.
Absolutely.
So that's really great. And it's also good that you could hone that skill in that situation. It's going to be basically a superpower for you going forward, because you probably had to face those kind of issues probably more than you will in a more corporate environment.
Oh, absolutely. I'd expect so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's, sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead, Zach.
While Terry looks over that, just for you guys in the audience, the reason this is so valuable, and I've taken a lot of notes myself here, because when you guys come and say, we're not really sure what we'd like to do, we're not really sure what we're good at, we're not really sure what kind of work environment we want. This is the type of exercise that allows you to gain that perspective. And what Terry's doing is systematically going through functional skills that Raleigh's good at, that what he's looking for in work, in a career. So I wrote down some of these things, like he likes recognition. And most of these are paired with generations. And what he's saying is not a foreign concept. Terry's heard it a million times. And what she's also drawn out too is, if you are struggling with the interview, if you're struggling with your resume, we are getting functional things right now: communication skills, willing to work in a team environment, these types things, team oriented, and we're gathering all these different types of things to be able to help him in the future, and as well as just continue on with the finding him a place where these skills and strengths align up with his abilities. Sorry, Terry. I just want to kind of let the audience know what we're doing on a whole level here.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think I actually am loving the format of what we're doing here, because I can get into it with Raleigh, and then you're sort of observing and in some ways translating and connecting the dots. And I really appreciate that, Zach, because what you're saying is absolutely true. And, so often, and actually this is how this actually started, was that you reached out and said, hey, can you help Raleigh with his resume? And that, that's where a lot of conversations with me start as a career coach, is people, oh, do you do resumes? Can you help with the resume? And yes, I can make the resume look beautiful, but the resume has to reflect the person. And very often, we don't go deep enough to say, like, what is it that I really want out of this? And am I really sharing the things that make me unique and special and great at what I would like to get hired to do? So that's why we're doing this. And I think it's well worth it. I've seen it work very, very well for so many people. So the next section is the interests inventory, and it's broken down into several areas. And this is again, it's one of these things that helps you understand yourself better. The areas are mechanical interests, theoretical interest, artistic interests, social interests, business interests, and organizational interests. And the ones that Raleigh is strongest in are organizational interests, theoretical interests, and then mechanical and social interests are tied. So again, I think that for what he wants to do, it makes sense. You want to go to work in a larger organization. You want to work in IT to support the business objectives. And, you're going to need to be able to, think about concepts. And, under the theoretical interest, it has like, do you like to solve puzzles? Do you like ambiguous challenges? Do you like to read and study? Right. So, you said yes to a lot of those. You said a big yes to a lot of those. So that's helpful. And then, there's a very limited list of jobs after that. And it's always funny because, there are thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of different types of jobs out there. But some of the ones that you checked off that are on this very limited list are like CAD designer, computer programmer, electronics technician, engineer, repairman, systems analyst. This is the beginning of your roadmap, right? And I don't know if you guys remember last time we talked about, like, where do we start? Okay, we start with getting clarity on your goals, and then we start to build your roadmap to get there. And this assessment workbook is helping with both of those things, getting clarity on the goal, but also starting to build the roadmap to go forward. So let me see here. Did you get a chance to start thinking about some of your success stories, Raleigh?
A little bit, but again, I had some difficulty with it. I need to go back and kind of remember some of them.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, like I said, you did a lot of work in a week's time. Most of the time it takes people several weeks to finish this, because it's not just about like filling out the workbook. Most of it is like really going deep within yourself.
For sure.
But some of the things that you can start. Well, actually, before I go into this, okay, were you able to go out onto like LinkedIn or Indeed and look up some jobs that looked interesting to you?
Yeah, I was. And I was able to talk to some friends about that too. So.
Oh, great. Well, let's talk about that. Like, what did you learn when you were out on your discovery mission?
I actually kind of didn't use LinkedIn that much. I found that like Facebook and Instagram were actually a little more relevant, just because people people seem to just use LinkedIn when they're looking for a job, and after they get that, they don't really seem to use it too much. I know a few people who are on there often, but not many. So what I did is like Facebook message a couple of friends that I hadn't talked to in a while, and just kind of reach out to them, kind of catch up. And like one of them was Adam. So he works in the industry, doing coding or whatever. That's what he started out with, but he went to school for that specifically. And I just kind of asked him, like, do I have the skills needed to do something like he does, or, you know, what I might want to do in addition to what I already have. And he's like, well, you could get like an entry-level position for that. I was like, yeah, because I have basic skills. But maybe I might want to go and do a boot camp like your son did or something like that. Because that would just give me the additional tools that I might need for a job that I really want. Again, I'm not below starting at a lower position, obviously. I just want to break into the industry because you got to start somewhere. So I talked to him about that. I talked to a couple other friends that were kind of helpful. So they obviously have different, forums or just communities where you can kind of talk to people who are already in the IT industry. Maybe they're working on improving a process or a new technology or building upon a technology that already exists. So you can go within those communities, kind of learn what they already know, and then talk to them about that and use that to kind of network and learn about maybe positions that are open with them or their company or something like that. So it's a lot more than just using LinkedIn. I found out, I think, I never would have guessed that. I don't think I've even watched any videos about that, like networking or anything, because everyone's always focused on the resume.
Exactly.
So that's tough. But yeah, there's just a lot more to networking. So what was that?
Well, let me ask you, like, how was that? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it scary?
Not so much. A lot of my
okay.
friends, whether I've talked to them in a long time or not, they're just kind of like, we can kind of pick up wherever we left off. So I don't know if that's unique or whatever, but I feel like a lot of people are like that. Just because you stop talking doesn't mean they're not going to talk to you again if you want to start it up again, even if it's just about business or whatever, right? It's a chance to reconnect. So
well, that's you're like a great salesperson for networking, because that's definitely what I've found as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my light right here.
As much as I hate it, I mean, it is.
But I mean, it's really reframing it to be like, hey, I'm just catching up with old friends, you know?
Yeah. It gets easier for sure. And then again, another friend, Ryan, he was like, maybe my job doesn't have any openings available, or I might not know anybody else who's in the industry, but then he also gave me some suggestions of like where to look. Like even I'm in Georgia, so they said look at like government websites or maybe like teaching like with a school or something like that, because apparently they have a little lower standards and that might be an easier place to get a job at. So I've been looking at like local job boards or like the state of Georgia, stuff like that, Department of Education or something like that. There's lots of stuff out there that I never would have even considered if I hadn't asked. So
I think that's amazing. And the reality is, you know, career coaches, I worked in marketing. So if somebody came to me and they were like, hey, I need a job in marketing, I could probably help them more than somebody going into IT, but it's not about the coach being an expert in the particular industry or the particular functional area. The coaches really are people that help people. They're experts in helping people find a job. And what you're doing is going out to people that are working in the industry that you want to get into and saying like, hey, what do you know that I don't know? What can you share with me so that I'm smarter about looking for my job? So again, kudos to you for doing this stuff, right?
I appreciate everything you're doing, because you're definitely like, sometimes I just need a little push, right? You're definitely a person who's kind of like, because
I mean, everybody's capable, right? People are capable
when hundreds of people
doing.
are listening too. But go ahead.
That's great. Zach, do you have anything that you want to add up until now, like what we're talking about now?
I just wanted to add a couple things. I appreciate you doing the homework. You know, like I said before,
Totally.
if you listen to the last episode, the reason I don't have a personal trainer is because I'm not willing to give up the chicken wings. And so if you're not willing to come to prepare, Raleigh's really been a good example of a good person that's done his homework behind the scenes, filled out a skills inventory, talked with people, connected with people, found different avenues, had conversations. This is what Terry's continuing to try to do, is have you build your network, because most jobs are found through a network. And so, you talked about different avenues. That's more than fine. Young people might be more experienced on the Instagram, or whether it be TikTok or anything. I would say LinkedIn, the people that keep up with it, what I have found is when there's another job change or transition, the people that have the most activity and the most connected, it's like leaving off where you left before. And so, a lot of people do use it, like you said, Raleigh, when they're just looking for a job. But what happens is that you'll need that again someday. And so if you keep working at it and you build it up, you'll have it for the rest of your life. And then the last thing, there's a website called score.org that you can go for free, and it connects you to mentors in Atlanta, Georgia. And so you can use that free website to even get a little bit more uncomfortable meeting some but they're willing to be a mentor to younger people, and it's a great nonprofit, no charge website. So Terry, thanks for letting me give my 2 cents.
That's great. You're a wealth of knowledge, Zach. And speaking of other avenues that you can go to that might not cost anything, like at your university, Raleigh, a lot of times they've got a career center, and they will do job fairs, and they'll do mock interviewing. And usually when organizations are interviewing at a job fair at a university, they have a specific interest. And, a lot of times they might have alums that work at their company. And so they know that, that's a good place to recruit for good candidates going forward. So those are just some places that you can go to sort of, raise yourself out of the, giant pile of resumes. and networking can work too. We've talked a bit about the job boards and so forth, and I never will say don't apply for jobs on job boards, but if you can use that combined with networking, that can be a lot more effective way to find a job too. Like, for example, if you see a job that you're interested in, and you can see if you know anybody that works at the company, and then reach out to them directly and say, hey, can you get my resume in front of the hiring manager? Because I don't know if we talked about this last time, but there are many filters, starting with the applicant tracking system, that are designed to to narrow down the number of resumes that make it to the hiring manager. And if somebody can, email it directly to the hiring manager, and then they may see it that way. Whereas if it goes through the official channels, it might never make it to them.
Yeah. Cool.
So, okay. Well, Zach, how are we doing on time?
Doing good. We've been through it about 30 minutes. We've sit here and chatted with Raleigh, so we're doing good. Terry, did you have anything else for this particular session, or?
Well, I think that what I'd like to ask Raleigh to do for next time is to think back over his academic career and his professional career, and come up with, let's say, 10 success stories. Okay. And there's a specific way that I want you to think about these success stories. I want you to think, write out what was the problem that you faced, what was the action that you took, and what was the result of that action. And if there's any way to measure that, like, you saved money, you saved time, you reduced risk or something like that, you increased efficiency, you saved hours, whatever. If there's any way that you can even creatively estimate what the result was that's measurable, write that down as well. Okay. And this is going to be the beginning of the building blocks for writing a very effective resume, and also the building blocks of how you will begin to present yourself as the top-notch product that you will be selling when you start interviewing.
All right.
Okay. Any
Sounds good to
questions
me.
about that?
No, not so much.
Okay, and one other thing, you may want to look over some of those job descriptions that
Okay.
you've looked at that are interesting, and look for some of the things that they're looking for, so that you can maybe think about some of your success stories that, like, for example, if you were going in and they were saying, "Oh, we want people that can deal with conflict,"
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, well then think back, like when, and I know that you worked in hospitality, so you probably have dealt with conflict, whether it was in the kitchen or the front of the house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, think of a great story that had a great result that hopefully is measurable, that if you're in an interview and they can say, well, Raleigh, tell me about a time and you dealt with like a tremendous conflict and how you handled it. You can
Mm-hmm.
pull that example out. It'll be top of mind because you would have already written it down and practiced it, and it'll come off like, finely tuned violin.
Yeah, because that's definitely a question I've been asked before on an interview. So I get
Sure.
it. It
And
makes sense.
yeah, yep. And so, in one of our future episodes, we'll do a mock interview, and hopefully by that time, you will come up with all of your success stories. You will have practiced them, and we'll have them in your resume, and then you'll be ready to go out there and get that next great job for yourself.
Hopefully so.
Okay,
I'll make sure
I
to
think
do the
that's,
homework.
yeah, good. I mean, you've been doing great so far. I give you an A+ so far, Raleigh.
Thank you.
Yeah, Terry, thanks so much for the guiding the show direction today. So, just to wrap up, what we've done here is we went over Raleigh's career assessment, learned some of his strengths, what kind of working environments he has, different functional skills, hard skills, soft skills, kind of gave him a roadmap, shed a little bit more light on what his goals are for his career, his strengths, working environments. And now Terry's prepared him. She gave it away, but it's no secret. But a lot of you guys struggle with the STAR questions, the situation, task, action, result. Tell me about a time you worked in a group. What was the end result? Tell me about a time you had to pull your weight more than others and a teammate wasn't pulling their weight. Well, how did you handle the situation? And what Terry's doing is she's preparing Riley for these questions. And if you got these examples ready to go, you can articulate them very well. You almost become an expert at this behind the scenes. So for next episode, we've got 2 more of these sessions. We'll go over the resume and the interview, and then we'll actually conduct a live mock interview virtually, which will be very exciting for you guys. I think it's going to help a lot of people because it'll help you in your own careers be able to realize, well, maybe I'm not saying that correctly. Maybe I'm not articulating my point, or maybe I just completely missed a question, or maybe I've always had the wrong answer. No wonder I'm not getting jobs. So we're going to go over that as well. So one more time, Terry, after watching this episode, let's say somebody wants to work with you, they can go to terrybmcdougall.com and all your stuff is located right there, correct?
That's right. And if they're interested in listening to the podcast, it's on all of the podcast platforms, but they can also go to gameofworkpodcast.com to listen to Winning the Game of Work podcast.
Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. Again, Raleigh, thank you for all your homework that you've graciously done over this time. And guys, we will see you soon. Subscribe to that YouTube channel link. This will pop up live. You can watch it live or you can go back and listen to it. Until next time, this is the Zach Ballinger Show.
Bye.